My husband's sleep-talking stopped last week, but the voice in our bedroom didn't. The first night it happened, I thought it was a dream. The voice came softly at first, a low murmur, just loud enough to make me stir. I turned toward my husband, half asleep, expecting to see him tangled in the sheets, mumbling nonsense like he always did. But his chest wasn't moving, he wasn't breathing. Then all at once he gasped, a deep, ragged inhale, and the sound stopped. I sat up, heart pounding. The clock on the bedside table glowed 3:17 a.m. in sickly blue digits. "James?" I whispered. He didn't respond. His face was turned away, peaceful, too still. "James?" "Nothing." I reached out, shaking his shoulder lightly. And that's when I realized the sound wasn't coming from him at all. It was coming from the corner of the room. A whisper. Faint. Female. "Why'd you stop talking?" I froze. For a moment I couldn't breathe. I turned on the lamp, flooding the room with warm light. Empty walls, closed window, the faint hum of the air conditioner. But the voice was gone. James rolled over, eyes fluttering open. "What's wrong?" he mumbled. "You were—" I started, then stopped. He looked too tired, too unaware. "Nothing. Go back to sleep." He nodded, already halfway gone again. But I didn't sleep. I sat there until dawn, staring at the dark corner by the wardrobe, waiting for it to whisper again. James has always been a sleep talker. It was one of those things I used to find endearing, the way he'd mumble full sentences, sometimes even laugh in his sleep. It started a few years into our marriage after his mother passed away. Doctors said it was harmless, stress-related, but a few weeks ago, it stopped. Completely. The silence should have been a relief, but it wasn't. It felt unnatural, like the calm before a storm. The night after the whisper, I told him what I'd heard. He laughed at first. "You've been watching too many of those late-night horror podcasts." "James, I'm serious," he set his coffee cup down, smiling gently. "Honey, I haven't said a word in my sleep for weeks. You probably just dreamed it." I wanted to believe him. I did. But later that night, as I lay in bed pretending to read, I noticed something strange. He wasn't asleep yet, but his lips were moving. No sound. Just silent, deliberate movement. Like he was having a conversation in his head and couldn't stop himself from mouthing the words. I leaned closer, trying to catch what he was saying. Then, clear as day, a whisper came from the corner again. "Answer her." I bolted upright. James blinked, confused. "What's wrong?" I pointed toward the wardrobe. "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" "The voice." He frowned. "Emma, there's no voice." I stared at him, searching for any sign of a joke, but his eyes were blank, honest. "You didn't hear anything?" "Just you," he said softly. "You're scaring me." That last line hurt. I didn't mean to sound crazy, but I could feel the cold creeping in from that corner, like the air itself was heavier there. I didn't sleep that night either. By the fourth night, the voice had changed. It wasn't soft anymore. It was closer. "He doesn't talk to me now," it said. I pulled the blanket up to my chin, heart thudding so loud I thought James would wake. But he didn't. He lay perfectly still, breathing deep and slow like a man in a trance. I whispered back before I could stop myself. "Who are you?" Silence. Then, faintly, laughter, a woman's laugh, low and broken. "Not me," the voice whispered. "You." I reached for the lamp, but my hand froze halfway. The power went out. The room plunged into darkness, and from the corner came the sound of bare feet dragging slowly across the floor. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. I stared into the dark, eyes watering, waiting for it to touch me. Instead, I felt James sit up beside me. "Emma," he said, voice rough, quiet. I turned to him, desperate. "You heard it." He wasn't looking at me, he was looking at the corner. "Stop whispering to her," he said. I went cold. "What?" His eyes shifted toward me slowly, unfocused. "You'll make her angry again." I reached for him. "James, what are you talking about?" He blinked, confusion flashing across his face. What time is it?" He didn't remember saying it. I could tell. I forced a shaky smile. "Go back to sleep." He nodded and lay back down. But I didn't move for hours. I just sat there, watching the dark corner where something unseen breathed softly, waiting for me to answer. The next morning, there were footprints on the floor. Wet, bare, too small to be James's. They started at the wardrobe and stopped at my side of the bed. When I showed him, he just frowned. "You spilled water again?" "James, those are footprints." He bent down, touched the floor, then wiped his fingers on his shirt. "It's dry." I looked again. The prints were gone. He kissed my forehead, smiling. "You're just tired. We both need a break." That night, he fell asleep instantly. I didn't even try. At 3:14 a.m., the voice came back. "Why'd you stop?" I didn't answer. "He listens to you," it continued. "He listens better when you're asleep?" My stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" The voice laughed softly, closer this time. "He doesn't sleep when you do." I turned toward James. His eyes were open, watching me. He smiled. Slow. Unnatural. Lips curling without warmth. and in a voice that wasn't his, he whispered, "She's not talking to you. Emma, she's talking through you." I jerked away from him, nearly falling out of bed. The sheets tangled around my legs as I scrambled backward until my spine hit the wall. "James," my voice cracked. "What did you just say?" He blinked once, slow, and for a second his expression shifted, confusion blooming across his face like he'd just woken from a dream. "Emma?" he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. "What's wrong?" "You said she's talking through me." He frowned. "Who?" "The voice." He shook his head. "You were dreaming again?" No, I hadn't been dreaming. I could still feel her breath in the air, still taste that cold metallic tang on my tongue, the scent that always came before she whispered. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. If I screamed, it would make everything real. So I just nodded and said, "Yeah, maybe I was." James smiled tiredly, rolled over, and was asleep again within seconds. I stayed awake until dawn. The next day, I tried to tell myself it was stress, sleep deprivation, my brain replaying a trick of light and sound until it became a monster. But deep down, I knew better. Because I'd seen the footprints. Because I'd heard her laugh. Because now, James was changing. He was quiet at breakfast, distant. When I asked if he remembered anything from the night before, he only shrugged. "Bad dreams," he said. "That's all." Then, as he stood to leave for work, he hesitated in the doorway. "You should get more rest, Em. She's making you tired." I froze. "Who?" He smiled faintly, not looking at me. "The woman you keep listening to." And then he was gone. The house felt wrong after he left. The air too heavy. The silence too loud. I moved through the rooms one by one, half expecting to see her standing somewhere, behind the couch, in the hallway mirror, at the foot of our bed. When I reached the bedroom, I stopped. The wardrobe door was open again. I knew I'd closed it the night before. I always did. Inside, my clothes hung neatly, but the smell of damp earth hit me in the face. Sharp, sour. Something dark stained the carpet beneath the hanging shirts. It looked like water. Or blood. I stepped closer, knees weak. The stain was shaped like a handprint. Small, delicate, feminine. Then, from behind me, a whisper. "Don't close the door." I spun around. No one there. The wardrobe light flickered. "You always close me in." I slammed the door and ran downstairs. By the time James came home, I'd convinced myself I'd imagined it. I even laughed when I told him, though it came out hollow. "I think I'm losing it," I said. "I keep hearing things." He set his bag down slowly. "What things?" I hesitated. "Voices. Her." He didn't look surprised. Instead, he walked to the corner of the living room, the same corner where I'd first heard her voice that night. He stood there for a long moment, eyes half closed, breathing deeply. When he turned back to me, his smile was too wide. "She says she likes you better when you don't talk." The air left my lungs. "James, stop." He tilted his head. "Why?" "You liked it when I talked in my sleep." "James, this isn't funny." "She missed that," he whispered, stepping closer. "You woke her up, Emma. You brought her back." I stumbled backward until my knees hit the couch. Who did I bring back?" "The one who used to live in that corner." My voice cracked. "James, you sound insane." He smiled again. "So do you." Then, just like that, he turned and walked away, into the kitchen, humming softly to himself, as if nothing had happened. I wanted to call someone. The police. A doctor, anyone. But what would I say? My husband's whispering to a corner in our bedroom? They'd think I was the crazy one, and maybe I was. That night, I locked the bedroom door. James didn't protest. He said he'd sleep on the couch. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting. Every creak of the house made my skin crawl. At 3:17 a.m., the whisper came again. "He's not sleeping." I sat up. The voice was closer, right next to my ear this time. "Who are you?" I whispered. The answer came with a smile I could feel more than hear. "I'm his first." The light flickered. "His... first what?" "Wife." My chest tightened. "That's not possible." "He never told you." The voice murmured, almost tender. "We lived here before you did." My heart raced. "You're lying." A pause. Then soft laughter. He buried me where the wardrobe stands. Something moved behind the door. Slow. Deliberate. Then I heard James whisper from the other side. Voice rough. Distant. "Don't listen to her." I scrambled out of bed, fumbling for the lamp. The bulb burst, plunging the room into darkness. From behind the wardrobe door came a creaking sound, like wood bending under weight. Then a knock. 3 slow knocks. "Emma," she whispered. He promised we'd never be alone. I ran to the window and threw it open, cold air slapping my face. Downstairs, I could see James standing in the yard, looking up at me. His face was pale in the moonlight. He smiled. Then, in perfect unison, the whisper behind me said, "We told you not to close the door." I didn't remember screaming, but my throat burned like I had. The cold wind hit my face, sharp as glass, while the wardrobe door behind me creaked open just enough to groan my name again. I stumbled away from it, pressing my back to the wall beneath the window. Below, James was still standing in the yard, barefoot in the frost, staring up. The moonlight cut a thin white edge across his face. "James!" I shouted down. "What's happening to us?" He didn't answer. His mouth opened slowly, but the voice that came out wasn't his. "Come down, Emma." It was her voice. The whisper. The voice that came from the corner every night. I slammed the window shut. The sound of laughter, low, wet, too close, filled the room. When I turned around, the wardrobe door was wide open. Inside, it wasn't my clothes anymore, just blackness, a hole that swallowed light. And from that darkness, something moved. The outline of a woman stepped forward, hair long and dripping, face hidden by shadow. Her fingers dragged along the inside of the door, nails scratching the wood. "You shouldn't have locked him out," she whispered. "He gets lonely when I'm quiet." I backed toward the door, fumbling with the handle, but it wouldn't turn. My palms slipped on the brass. Then James's voice came from the hallway. "Emma, let me in." I froze. The woman's reflection, her outline, was visible now in the mirror above the dresser, but there was no one standing in front of it. Just me. "Emma," James called again, softer now. "You have to open the door before she does." "I don't know who to believe," I whispered. From the mirror, the woman leaned forward, her face coming into focus. It was me. Wet hair, pale eyes, smiling like something that had forgotten how. "She's already in," the reflection said. The knob turned on its own. I ran. I didn't stop until I was outside, bare feet crunching through frozen grass. The air stung my lungs. James was still there, standing by the hedge, staring at the house. When he turned, his eyes were wide, glassy, like a sleepwalker's. "Why did you leave her?" he asked. "Leave who?" His expression shifted, flickering between confusion and something darker. "You were supposed to stay." "James, please," I begged. "You're scaring me." "She's been waiting," he said. "She said you'd come back when the talking stopped." I reached for him. "James." He flinched like my touch burned him. "You can't touch me anymore." "What are you saying?" He looked past me, up at the bedroom window, where the curtains swayed even though the glass was shut. "She's jealous." The window exploded inward. Shards of glass rained down, catching moonlight as they fell. I ducked instinctively, covering my head. When I looked back up, the light in the bedroom was on. And there, framed in the window, I was standing. Not me. I was outside, bleeding from a dozen tiny cuts. But another version of me looked down, smiling faintly, her eyes completely black. James smiled too, like he recognized her. "There you are," he said softly. My stomach turned to ice. "James, that's not me." He took a step toward the house. "Stop!" I screamed, grabbing his arm. He turned to me, and for the briefest moment, I saw two faces overlaying each other, his and hers. "The woman from the wardrobe," he whispered. "She missed you." Then he ripped his arm free and walked back toward the house. I chased him, screaming, but the front door slammed shut before I reached it. The lock clicked by itself. From inside came muffled voices, his and hers, low, intimate, perfectly in sync. I pounded on the door until my hands were raw, but no one answered. When the lights inside finally went out, I backed away, shaking, tears freezing on my cheeks. From the dark window above, my reflection, her reflection, was still watching me, smiling. I don't know how long I stood outside, maybe hours. By the time I found my phone, my fingers were too numb to hold it steady. I called the police. I told them my husband had gone into the house, that there was someone else inside who looked exactly like me. They arrived 20 minutes later. The front door was open when they got there. The lights were back on. No one was inside. No broken glass. No footprints in the frost. No trace of James. Just our bed, made perfectly. 2 impressions in the pillows. They looked at me the way people look at a stray dog. Half pity, half fear. One officer offered to take me to the station. Another suggested I get some rest. When I refused to go inside, they left, and I sat on the porch until morning. The house is empty now. I tell myself that every day. I walk through it, sunlight filling every corner. No shadows left for her to hide in, but the mirrors are still wrong. When I pass by one, the reflection lags for just a moment too long. Sometimes it smiles when I don't, and sometimes, when I wake in the middle of the night, I swear I can hear James talking again, his voice low, tender, coming from somewhere deep inside the walls. Last night, I heard him clearly. He said, "She's almost ready to stop pretending." I wanted to leave. I should have, but I followed the sound to the wardrobe instead. It was open again. Inside, my wedding dress hung where it always had, but the hem was wet, dripping onto the carpet. A whisper came from behind it. "You'll look beautiful this time." I tore the dress down, flinging it aside. Behind it, the wall was cracked, and beneath the crack, the wallpaper had peeled away, revealing something dark. Wood, old, splintered, and marked with nails. A door. I didn't remember a door being there. As I stared, the nails began to pull free one by one, the wood creaking under invisible hands. From the other side, James's voice whispered, "Emma, please let me out." My knees nearly gave out. "James?" "Yes," he said. "It's me." I reached out, fingertips brushing the surface. It was cold, slick, like glass, not wood. Then softly, the woman's voice joined his. "We both missed you." The door shuddered. Something behind it started breathing. And for a moment, just one, my reflection in the mirror beside me grinned wide enough to split its face. I ran before the door could finish opening. I don't remember deciding to move, only the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears as I tore down the hallway. Every light in the house flickered in my wake, bulbs buzzing and burning out one by one until the corridor was swallowed in darkness. Behind me, something dragged across the floor. Slow, wet, deliberate. It wasn't James. Emma. Two voices whispered in perfect harmony, layered on top of each other. "You never should have left." I reached the front door and yanked on the handle. It wouldn't budge. The lock turned, the deadbolt clicked, but the door stayed in place as if the wood itself was holding its breath. From somewhere behind me came the sound of laughter. Not loud, but close. "Please," I begged, pounding on the door. "Just let me out." The whisper was right behind my ear now. "You already are." I spun around. Nothing but shadows. The house hummed faintly, alive with the sound of breathing, my own echoing back at me from walls that shouldn't breathe at all. I ran into the kitchen. The window above the sink still glowed faintly with the outside streetlight. I reached for it, fumbling with the latch, but as soon as I lifted the glass, my reflection appeared, clearer than it should have been in the dark. It smiled, and then, as I watched, its lips began to move. "I told you not to look." The reflection's hand reached out and pressed against the inside of the glass. The pane flexed like water. I stumbled back, tripping over a chair, and hit the floor hard. The reflection didn't follow. It just kept smiling. Patient. Kind. Too kind. Then it whispered one more word that made my skin crawl. "Trade." I covered my ears, screaming, but the sound wasn't muffled. It was inside me. The lights flared once, and then everything went still again. I don't know how long I stayed there, sitting on the cold tile, staring at my own reflection frozen in that thin sheet of glass. When I finally stood, my legs were numb, my throat raw. I left the kitchen and went back upstairs. The wardrobe door was still open. The air around it shimmered faintly, like heat rising off asphalt. I could see movement beyond the threshold, shapes flickering through light. For a second, I thought I saw James, his outline barely visible. He was standing just beyond the dark, his eyes empty, his mouth opening and closing like he was speaking underwater. "James," I whispered. He looked up. His lips moved again, and though I couldn't hear the words, I understood them. "Help me." I took a step closer. The floorboards groaned under my weight. The air turned colder. As I reached the edge of the wardrobe, a hand shot out of the darkness and grabbed my wrist. It wasn't James's hand. It was smaller, smoother, feminine. Her grip was strong enough to bruise. "Stay," she whispered. I yanked free and stumbled backward. The air around the wardrobe pulsed, and a rush of wind spilled out, carrying with it the smell of wet soil. Then I heard something else. A faint rhythm, deep and steady, like a heartbeat. It was coming from inside the wardrobe. The heartbeat grew louder, faster, until the whole house seemed to vibrate with it. The lights in the hallway flickered again, and the mirror at the end of the corridor cracked from top to bottom. I looked down. The shadow on the floor wasn't mine anymore. It was taller, thinner, and it moved when I didn't. I ran again, back to the bedroom, slamming the door behind me. The pounding followed, soft at first. Then louder, each hit came with a whisper, "Let us out, let us out, let us out." The door began to splinter in a panic. I turned toward the dresser and pulled open the top drawer. James's old voice recorder lay inside, covered in dust. He used to record his sleep talking, curious to hear what he said. I grabbed it without thinking and pressed play. Static hissed, followed by his voice. Calm, slow, almost tender. "Emma, if you're hearing this, you need to listen carefully." I froze. His voice wavered like it was recorded years ago. "She comes when I stop talking. The silence lets her in. Don't listen to her voice. Don't talk to her reflection. She only needs you to answer once." A crash interrupted him, something slamming into the door again. "James," I whispered into the recorder. "What do I do?" Static. Then his voice again. "You can't let her finish the sentence." The pounding stopped. For a moment, the world was still. Then the whisper came. This time, not from the hallway, from behind me. "Finish what sentence?" I turned slowly. The mirror above the dresser was no longer cracked. It was smooth, perfect, and James stood inside it. His eyes were black now, his mouth twitching into a half smile. "She's almost done," he said. The reflection beside him, the woman, smiled wider. Her mouth opened too far, revealing nothing but darkness. "Say it," she whispered. The glass rippled. "Say it, and we'll all be free." I pressed record on the device and whispered into it, voice trembling. "Who are you?" The recorder clicked, word, then played back immediately. "Who are you?" the woman's voice mimicked. Then it laughed. The laughter was endless, echoing from every surface. The mirror bulged outward, glass stretching like skin, and through it, 2 hands reached, James's and hers. I didn't think. I grabbed the nearest object, the lamp, and hurled it into the mirror. The glass exploded. Light filled the room, blinding and hot. When it faded, the mirror was gone. The wardrobe door was shut again, and in the corner of the room, something moved. It was small, still, familiar. James's voice recorder lay there, the red light blinking softly. I picked it up. A single new message was saved. I pressed play. My own voice came through, calm, steady, almost kind. "Don't worry," I whispered on the tape. "We're safe now. She's gone." Then faintly over the static, "No, she's not." The voice on the recorder continued to hiss softly, distorted, until I turned it off. The red light died and the room fell silent, too silent. Even the house had stopped breathing. For a few minutes, I sat on the floor clutching the recorder, staring at the empty space where the mirror used to hang. The air was heavy and still, like the world was holding its breath, waiting. "James?" I whispered. No answer. I forced myself to stand, my body trembling, and stumbled into the hallway. The wallpaper was damp beneath my fingertips, as if the walls themselves had begun to sweat. Every step I took echoed faintly, like there was a hollow space beneath the floor. When I reached the wardrobe again, I stopped. The door was still closed. No wind, no sound. I wanted to believe it was over. That maybe, somehow, I'd done what James couldn't. But something about the stillness was wrong. The wood looked darker now, almost black, and the faint smell of earth had returned, stronger, fresher, like the ground after rain. My hand moved on its own. I pressed my ear to the surface. Nothing. Then, faintly, a heartbeat. Not fast. Slow. Rhythmic. I took a step back. No. The wood pulsed beneath my palm. And then came her voice. "It's not his heart anymore." I stumbled backward, hitting the wall. The wardrobe door shuddered once, then twice. Then the latch began to turn. "No," I said out loud, my voice shaking. "Stay closed." A low laugh came from inside. Soft, wet, terrible. "It doesn't open from here." I froze. "What do you mean?" I whispered. The voice was gentle now, almost sympathetic. "You were already inside." The world shifted. The air grew thick, the light dimming until everything turned gray. My vision blurred like fog on glass. I turned in a panic, looking for the door to the hallway, but it was gone. So were the walls. The wardrobe was the only thing that remained. And it was open now. Inside it wasn't darkness. It was a corridor of mirrors, stretching infinitely in both directions. And in each reflection, I saw James, not one James, but hundreds. All of them standing perfectly still, eyes open, staring straight at me. Then one of them moved. He pressed his palm against the glass closest to me, lips parting slowly. "Emma," he whispered. "Don't believe her." Before I could respond, a hand wrapped around my wrist. It wasn't his. It was cold, slick, feminine. Her voice came from behind me. "You promised," she said. I turned. She was there. Not the ghostly outline from before, not a shadow, but whole. Flesh, skin, eyes like polished obsidian. She looked just like me, down to the smallest detail, except for her smile. It was wrong, too wide, too knowing. "You brought me here," she said. "You called my name." "I never—" "You did," she interrupted softly. "Every time you looked for him, every time you said his name, you opened the door wider." I shook my head. "You're lying." Her eyes softened, almost pitying. "You're the lie." Then she touched my face. Her fingers were icy, but her skin was smooth, familiar. "Don't you remember?" she whispered. He never stopped talking. "Not to you. To me." Behind her in the mirrors, every version of James began to move. Their lips opened in perfect unison. "Trade," they all whispered. The corridor shook. The air rippled. My ears rang with their voices overlapping. I clamped my hands over my ears and screamed, "Stop!" But they didn't. The woman, my reflection, my ghost, whatever she was, took my hands in hers and leaned close. "You can't stop what's already inside," she said. "You let him in. You let me in." Then she pressed her forehead against mine, and the mirrors around us shattered. When I opened my eyes, I was back in our bedroom. Morning light streamed through the curtains. For a moment, I thought it was over. The wardrobe stood closed. The walls were dry. The air smelled normal again. Dust, linen, the faint trace of coffee from downstairs. I let out a shaky laugh. Oh my God. Then I heard humming. James's humming. I turned. He was sitting at the edge of the bed, his back to me. His hair was damp, his shirt stained dark around the shoulders. James, I whispered. He didn't move. James? When I stepped closer, he finally turned his head. Half his face was missing. Not gone, exactly, just reflected wrong. The left side shimmered like glass, distorting the light. And in that surface, I saw her, my reflection, smiling from within. "Morning, Emma," he said softly, though his lips barely moved. "James, what happened to you?" He stood, moving stiffly like a puppet on strings. "You let her out. She's free now." "No," I whispered. "No, She wants to thank you." From behind him, the wardrobe creaked open. The woman stepped out, perfectly dry now, hair gleaming like polished ink. I stumbled backward, shaking my head. "Stay away," she smiled. "You still don't understand." "Understand what?" "You never left," she said. "You're the one in the mirror." The room tilted. The light dimmed. I turned to run, but the window showed something wrong. My reflection wasn't following me. It was standing still, smiling faintly. "James," I whispered. "Tell me I'm real." He looked at me sadly. "I did, every night. I told you were real, but you never believed me." The woman's shadow stretched across the floor. Reaching my feet, her voice came from everywhere at once. "Now it's time to rest." I screamed and lunged for the mirror above the dresser, the last one unbroken. I raised my fist and drove it forward with all my strength. Glass exploded outward, and for one heartbeat, I saw her face instead of mine, smiling, peaceful, content, then everything went white. When I woke, the room was silent again. The wardrobe was gone. The bed was neatly made. The walls were painted white, and in the corner sat a small, old-fashioned recorder, blinking red. I crawled toward it and pressed play. Static. Then a voice. My voice. "It's okay," I whispered on the tape. "She's gone now. James is safe." A pause, then faintly a second voice behind mine. "But you're not." The recorder clicked off. The reflection in the window blinked when I didn't. I sat in front of the window for hours, watching my reflection. It didn't blink again. Didn't move. Didn't mimic me at all. It was waiting. The world outside was pale and still, dawn pressing gray light through thin curtains. The street below was empty. Everything looked normal, but it wasn't. I could feel it. When I turned away, I could still sense the reflection behind me, like a pulse in the room, like she was breathing my air. I stood and went to the wardrobe. It wasn't really gone, just blurred out, like a photograph smudged at the edges. My hand passed through where the wood should have been. Cold air brushed my fingertips. The hum began again, low, rhythmic, like something mechanical and alive. "Emma," I spun around. James stood in the doorway, alive, whole, normal. He was smiling, that small, soft smile I used to love, the one he hadn't worn since before the whispering started. For a moment, I believed it. "James?" "Yeah," he said. "It's me." I ran to him, threw my arms around his neck, burying my face against his shoulder. His skin was warm, his breath real. I could smell him, soap, sweat, the faint scent of coffee. "It's over," I whispered. "It's finally over." He held me tighter. "Almost." Something about the word made me freeze. "Almost." I pulled back to look at him. His eyes were too dark. "You did so well," he said softly. "She's happy now." "Who?" I whispered. He smiled wider. "You." The light flickered. His shadow stretched across the room, crawling up the walls, long and distorted. Behind it, another shape moved, taller, thinner. A woman's silhouette. The hum grew louder. "She missed you," he said. "She says it's time." I stumbled back. No, you're not him." His face softened. "Emma, look at me. You called her, remember? You brought her home. She's you. You're her." That's why she stopped whispering. The window behind him flashed. In its reflection, I saw two of us. One standing by the door, the other sitting in the chair by the window. The one sitting down smiled faintly and lifted her hand in a slow, deliberate wave. "Trade," she mouthed. I backed away until I hit the wall. "Please, James, don't." He stepped closer. His eyes were empty now. "It's easier if you don't fight." He reached out, touched my face gently, and whispered, "Sleep." The air folded inward. The world blurred like water disturbed by a stone. When I opened my eyes, the light was soft and golden. The air smelled like rain and jasmine. The room was familiar, but not mine. Everything was clean, white, weightless. The mirrors on the walls reflected endless light. "James?" I called. My voice echoed strangely, like it was coming from somewhere else. A woman stepped into the doorway. She looked exactly like me. Her expression was calm, almost kind. "You're awake," she said. I stared at her. "What is this place?" "Home." "No." My voice broke. "No, this isn't real." She tilted her head. It's more real than what you left behind. I'm not you, she smiled gently. You were never anything else. I ran to the nearest mirror, but there was no reflection, just light. Endless, depthless light. Behind me, her footsteps were silent. You can stay, she said. It's peaceful here. No more noise. No more fear. What about James? I asked. He's where he belongs, she said simply. He kept his promise. What promise? To never let you be alone, I turned. Where is he? She didn't answer. Instead, she reached out and touched the mirror. The surface rippled, revealing a faint image. James sitting on our bed, alone. The room was dark, the walls gray with age. The air looked heavy, suffocating. He was holding something in his hands. My wedding ring. He whispered my name once, then lay down and closed his eyes. The light in the image faded. Stop it, I said. Let me out. The reflection shimmered, distorting. My other self sighed softly. You can't leave. The living never do. I'm not dead. Her smile deepened. Then why does he talk to the dark now? The light around us dimmed, flickering like dying candles. She stepped closer, her face inches from mine. You don't belong to the world anymore, she whispered. You belong to the glass. I screamed and shoved her, but my hands passed right through her. The air around me thickened, pulling me backward. The mirrors began to hum again. Every reflection came alive. Hundreds of me staring back, whispering the same word in perfect unison. Trade, trade, trade. I fell through light, through glass, through everything. When the world steadied again, I was standing in my bedroom. The mirror was whole, the wardrobe shut. James was sleeping beside me, breathing evenly. Morning sunlight spilled across the sheets. Everything looked normal, but I knew it wasn't, because when I looked at the mirror across the room, my reflection didn't move. It just smiled and whispered softly, "Good morning." Emma. My lips didn't move, and from James's side of the bed, a woman's voice answered quietly, "Good morning." The end.